A false flag operation is an act committed with the intent of disguising the actual source of responsibility and pinning blame on a second party. The term is popular amongst conspiracy theory promoters in referring to covert operations of various governments and cabals. The term, false flag, originated in the 16th century as a purely figurative expression to mean a deliberate misrepresentation of someone's affiliation or motives. It was later used to describe a ruse in naval warfare whereby a vessel flew the flag of a neutral or enemy country in order to hide its true identity. The tactic was originally used by pirates and privateers to deceive other ships into allowing them to move closer before attacking them. It later was deemed an acceptable practice during naval warfare according to international maritime laws, provided the attacking vessel displayed its true flag once an attack had begun. The term today extends to include countries that organize attacks on themselves and make the attacks appear to be by enemy nations or terrorists, thus giving the nation that was supposedly attacked a pretext for domestic repression and foreign military aggression. Similarly, deceptive activities carried out during peacetime by individuals or non-governmental organizations can also be called false flag operations, but the more common term is frame up, stitch up, or set up. In land warfare, such operations are generally deemed acceptable under certain circumstances, such as to deceive enemies, provided the deception is not perfidious and that all such deceptions are discarded before opening fire upon the enemy. Similarly, in naval warfare such a deception is considered permissible, provided the false flag is lowered and the true flag raised before engaging in battle. Auxiliary cruisers operated in such a fashion in both world wars, as did Q ships, while merchant vessels were encouraged to use false flags for protection. Such masquerades promoted confusion not just of the enemy but of historical accounts. In 1914 the Battle of Trinidad was fought between the British auxiliary cruiser RMS Carmania and the German auxiliary cruiser SMS Cap Trafalgar, which had been altered to look like Carmania. Another notable example was the World War II German commerce raider Cormoran, which surprised and sank the Australian light cruiser HMAS Sydney in 1941 while disguised as a Dutch merchant ship, causing the greatest recorded loss of life on an Australian warship. While Cormoran was fatally damaged in the engagement and its crew captured, the outcome represented a considerable psychological victory for the Germans. The British used a Kriegsmarine ensign in the Saint Nazaire raid and captured a German codebook. The old destroyer Campbelltown, which the British planned to sacrifice in the operation, was provided with cosmetic modifications that involved cutting the ship's funnels and chamfering the edges to resemble a German Type 23 torpedo boat. By this ruse the British were able to get within 2 miles of the harbour before the defences responded, where the explosive-rigged Campbelltown and commandos successfully disabled or destroyed the key dock structures of the port. In December 1922 to February 1923, rules concerning the control of wireless telegraphy in time of war and air warfare, drafted by a commission of jurists at The Hague, regulates. This draft was never adopted as a legally binding treaty, but the cross-states in its introduction on the draft, to a great extent, correspond to the customary rules and general principles underlying treaties on the law of war on land and at sea, and as such these two non-controversial articles were already part of customary law. In land warfare, the use of a false flag is similar to that of naval warfare. The trial of Otto Skorzeny, who planned and commanded Operation Grief, by a U.S. military tribunal at the Dachau trials included a finding that Skorzeny was not guilty of a crime by ordering his men into action in American uniforms. He had relayed to his men the warning of German legal experts that if they fought in American uniforms, they would be breaking the laws of war. However, they probably were not doing so simply by wearing the American uniforms during the trial. A number of arguments were advanced to substantiate this position and the German and US military seemed to have been in agreement. In the transcript of the trial, it is mentioned that paragraph 43 of the field manual published by the War Department, United States Army, On the 1st of October 1940, under the entry rules of land warfare states, national flags, insignias and uniforms as a ruse, in practice it has been authorized to make use of these as a ruse. The foregoing rule does not prohibit such use, but does prohibit their improper use. It is certainly forbidden to make use of them during a combat. Before opening fire upon the enemy, they must be discarded. In 1788, the head tailor at the Royal Swedish Opera received